Hi, I'm Jean Shafiroff, and I'm on a mission. Anyone can be a philanthropist. My television show came from my book, Successful Philanthropy, How to Make a Life by What You Give. Won't you join me?
My grandfather was not afraid of the truth. Nelson Mandela instead spoke out loudly and with dignity. His only surviving son had died of AIDS. It has been 11 years since my father passed away. I would have loved to see the look on his eyes today as I address the opening of this historical meeting in this historical place.
From a young age, my grandfather put the pressure on me to make me understand what my role is. Ndaba, you are my grandson. We are peacekeepers. Therefore, people will look at you as a leader. I didn't want that. I just wanted to be a normal kid. I just wanted to be like everyone else. I don't want to be a leader, but this is my role and responsibility. My name is Ndaba Mandela. I am from South Africa. Grew up in Soweto, southwest of Johannesburg, where they moved the black people to. And I would always witness these cops, these police coming to the neighborhood, raiding people, harassing people. And so I wanted to hit back. But we all know that Nelson Mandela never did that. One of the things he says that in order to defeat your enemy, you must work with your enemy, because then he becomes your partner, maybe even your friend. When you operate from a position of love and understanding, then you will be able to achieve anything. You'll be able to overcome. But of course, there must be patience in that as well. It's not going to come overnight. But ultimately, that is what will allow us to reach a place where we can understand each other, where we can communicate openly, be honest, and grow. I'm proud to be who I am, and I am not happy with the state of Africa. And I feel that I must do something, I must contribute to making sure that Africa is in a better place. And I thought to myself, wouldn't this world that we live in today be a better world if we had 100 Mandelas?
I am a global citizen. What I can dream, I can achieve. Together, with these hands, we can make a better world.
Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff, and this show is designed to highlight the work of philanthropic leaders here in the United States and then beyond. With us today, a very special guest. He's joining us from South Africa. His name, Ndaba Mandela. He's an author, an activist, the grandson of the great Nelson Mandela. Ndaba, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are? I am a great fan of your grandfather, Nelson Mandela. I'm a great fan of your family, but I want to hear from you. I understand you grew up in 1982. The first time you met your grandfather was in 1989 while he was in prison. And then when he came out, you lived with him starting in 1993. He became president of South Africa in 1994. And from there, we can go on, but he served 1-year term. He did not want to run for a second term. He's an internationally renowned, phenomenal world leader. And Ndaba, I want to hear from you a little bit about your beginnings.
Well, like most, Black South Africans, we come from humble beginnings. I was born in Soweto, and and then moved to the Eastern Cape, where I grew up with my grandmother, Evelyn, who was the first wife of Nelson Mandela. And then shortly after that, moved to Durban, moved back eventually to Johannesburg. And, I was, very much standard poor sort of living until my grandfather came to pick me up in 1993. And then I moved to the, to the white, leafy suburbs of northern Johannesburg. So I guess my life turned around, and I was able to and I became privileged, I guess, with having access to good education, and living obviously in a posh neighborhood and having access that my brothers and sisters didn't have access growing up. So I have been very blessed and very lucky to be grown up with my grandfather, and him being able to actually transfer his values onto me by bringing me up in the household, being a strict grandfather, wanting to make sure my room was neat, making sure that my grades are always on tip top, even though I was just scraping by. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think the old man, his light shone through, and I'm here to make sure that the fire never burns out.
I like that. And now when I think of the last century and I think about our two greatest leaders, I think first of Martin Luther King and then next Nelson Mandela. And can you tell our audience a little bit about the life your grandfather lived? He was in prison for 27 years. But while he was in prison, my understanding is that he worked very hard because he knew he'd get out and that he'd be able to change his entire country. Can you discuss with our audience a little bit exactly about what he did?
Well, like Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela fought for the rights of his fellow countrymen, for Black people who were marginalized by the government. They wanted to make sure that every Black person has dignity and is recognized in front of the law as equals, just like their white counterparts. And so he went to jail basically for fighting for the freedom and liberties of his countrymen. And so they said he was, a traitor, he caused treason, because he ultimately became the first, leader of the military armed wing of the ANC. And so what they did was they bombed power stations, and they bombed, post offices and communication lines, so that would make it hard for the government to actually carry on the business of the day. They never really targeted actual human beings, but actually targeted infrastructure. And, he was caught in '64, and that was actually with the help of the CIA at the time. And so he went to jail for 27 years. He never knew he would come out, but he believed that he was fighting for a just cause. And so he dedicated his whole life, sacrificed his whole family, to making sure that he would, make strides and making sure that Black people would be seen as equals in front of the law.
Yes, and he was instrumental in ending apartheid, correct? And really changing the life for Black people across the world. And now, how important is it to you to carry on his legacy?
It is very, very important, because if we agree that Nelson Mandela is one of the greatest leaders that the world has seen in recent history of the 21st century, then why are we not trying to replicate and teach our young people the values and the leadership style of Nelson Mandela, so that they can be inspired to use the same values in their workplace, in their community, in their homes, in their family, to exude the same, confidence and wanting and compassion for your fellow countrymen, making sure that regardless of your skin color, we all have an environment in which our children can thrive, can actually pursue their dreams, and are not going to be treated unequally because of the color of their skin.
Absolutely. And racial justice is key to our world moving forward. Now, Ndela, you recently started a foundation called the Mandela Institute for Humanity. Can you describe a little bit about the Institute and exactly what your objectives are, and tell our audience a little bit about some of your future plans?
So we established the Institute back in 2019 in America. And this was, after recent success with my book that I released in 2018. And so the amount of support and admiration and just the good reactions that I received, promoting the book, I decided that it was time for us to have a presence in America and be closer to the people that make decisions on a global scale. And for us, our number one, priority is to really, activate youth leadership. We want to activate the next Mandelas of the next generation. And so for us, we have created a leadership program that we call the 100 Mandelas, where we are trying to raise 100 Mandelas, but obviously much more than that, right? The reason why it's called 100 Mandelas is because this idea was born in 2018 when we were celebrating the 100 years of Nelson Mandela. And so what we want to do is to have a 11-month-long online course for young people between the ages of 21 to 35. And after the 11-month online course, these young people will then come to South Africa and actually walk in the footsteps of Nelson Mandela, going into the rural area, Eastern Cape, when he was a young boy growing up under the king and learning what it was, what is the job of a mediator, what is the job of a peacekeeper within the kingdom. And from then he moved on to Johannesburg, where he learned to become a lawyer and an activist. What are the lessons he learned in that period of his life? And eventually moving on to Cape Town, where he was incarcerated, and he was able to then understand truly the mentality of his enemy and make sure that he comes out of jail without the bitterness. So what are the lessons that he learned in that later part of his life? And so this is really a full-on sort of course where we want to inspire young people to lead with the values of Nelson Mandela. We want to reignite that spirit of Nelson Mandela in young people and make young people understand that they are the masters of their destiny and they need to get involved in what is happening in our society. Young people, we need more young people involved in politics. We need more young people to be at the mayor's office, in the president's office, you understand, and so forth. We cannot continue being led by dinosaurs, when 70% of our population in some countries in Africa is youth.
Well, I agree with you completely, and I absolutely admire what you're doing. And the next generation is so incredibly important for the future of the world. And right now, great leadership is really, truly needed. Now, I want to go back to your book. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about the book you authored and exactly what it was all about, and the name of it, of course?
Yes, so I published a book called Going to the Mountain: Life Lessons from My Grandfather. The second edition is out. It's called 11 Life Lessons from My Grandfather. And basically, I wanted to connect young people to Nelson Mandela. And so I wrote about my grandfather from the perspective of him being a grandfather, not a revolutionary or a president, but I wanted young people to relate to Nelson Mandela as a grandparent, like most young people have grandparents. And so I talked about the lessons that he taught me when I was growing up with him in Houghton. And so, I talk about, what does it mean when he says that love is much more powerful than hate, because love is much more natural to the human condition than hate, right? And so why are we not teaching love? Why are we not teaching our young people to communicate better with each other? Why are we not teaching our young people to not look at the cultural divide, but rather look at the similarity and the common things that bring them together? You see, so for me, it was really about making young people understand Nelson Mandela, the grandfather,
and the lessons that he taught me, because I believe those lessons are universal lessons. You know, he tells us that after climbing a great hill and you reach the top of the mountain, you realize that there are many great hills that you still have to conquer. And you look at the lives of young Black people across the world. You know, you living in the ghetto, there's gang violence, there's alcoholic shops every corner, right? So you need to get through that in order for you to study, in order to qualify to get into university. And once you get into university, how are you going to pay for university? And then when you finish university, right, now you need to go into the workplace where you're going to compete against your white counterparts, privileged people, right? So every step of your life, there are mountains that you have to climb. And so that is why the book is called Going to the Mountain, because we as young people have to fight the enemy, no longer that's out there, but that's within us.
So true. And education is so key to bring forth future generations. And I'm here, very much of your book is about education as well. And Mandela, would you ever consider running for political office, perhaps president of South Africa? Based on what I'm hearing today, it sounds to me like you would make an excellent leader.
You know, before I had considered it, but I realized that in the world that we're living in, you don't have to take political office to cause impact and change in your community. You know, there are many ways in which you can be a beacon of hope and be an activist and push for change. You know, whether it be in education, whether it be in the healthcare, whether it be, you know, entrepreneurship or mentorship. You know, so I believe that it's not necessary to be a president or a minister or a mayor for you to cause change. We can all become activists and cause change in our own, you know, in our own individualistic stance that we are in our own communities. You don't have to be on a national level. Change starts at home. Change starts within your own family.
Yes, but your country, if it was in need of a great leader, such as yourself, would you be willing to run?
The people have to be the ones to decide, you know, who must run. So I think we'll face that. I mean, it's a tricky one. But I would say yes. I think it's time for us to all pull up our socks. Yes. For us to all look at ourselves, you know, in a mirror and say, what are you willing to do in order to make sure that there is real change on the ground and that we don't move backwards?
Yes,
we have to dedicate ourselves.
I'm sorry, I love that you would be willing to run for president of South Africa, because you might in a few years be just in that position where your country will look for a leader like yourself. Now, you're very interested in AIDS and combating AIDS in South Africa, in Africa, and around the world. What have you done in that area that you want to share with our audience?
Well, you know, I have been one of the longest serving ambassadors of United Nations HIV/AIDS. And through that, you know, we traveled to various countries like Russia, Brazil, and many other countries where we talked to victims of HIV/AIDS, where we talked to families, we talked to orphans, we talked to sex workers, we talked to the public. You know, there have been conferences held in many different parts of the world. We even launched a program called Menstar with Prince Harry and Elton John in Netherlands 3 years ago, where we are trying to get men involved in the conversation, you know, because it's a vicious cycle that takes place where you have the older gentleman who's usually a little bit more, you know, they got a little bit of more pocket, and they go for the young girls. The young girls then, you know, infect their boyfriends who are their age, right? And then, you know, it's like a vicious cycle that continues. So unless men come to the conversation, this battle is never really going to be won. So for me, it's something very close to me because I lost both my parents to HIV/AIDS. South Africa has a generation of child-headed households because of HIV/AIDS. And so right now it's very difficult to fight HIV/AIDS because now we're fighting COVID, right? But ultimately, HIV/AIDS is one of the underlying issues where people who then get COVID don't stand a chance to fight COVID and usually perish. But for us, it's really about continuing the awareness and education and making sure that people get tested and know their HIV status.
Yes, and if your grandfather, Nelson Mandela, was alive today, what would he say about the current leadership that we see here in the world? To me, it looks like we are looking at a picture where good leaders around the world are desperately needed. I love that you have put together the Mandela Institute for Humanity to train leaders. But what would your grandfather say now? And maybe this is why you started this institute.
Well, I think my grandfather would be very disappointed with the current crop of leaders that we have. You know, my grandfather was a man who was full of compassion and believed in compassion. And that's one thing that you don't see from leaders today. They try to intimidate their citizens from voting, right? You look at Uganda today, they cut off the internet. They intimidate the political opposition. They do all sorts of things to try and really downplay the democratic process. So I think my grandfather would really try to speak to current leaders to remind them of their humanity. The one thing that we share is to remind them to say that whether you're black or white, poor or rich, we all want an environment in which our children can be educated, can be safe, and can thrive, and can pursue their dreams, right? So they can grow to become responsible citizens. So we need to remember that leadership is not about being number one or being the best. Leadership is about serving those who don't have a voice and standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And so that is why in 2020, the pendulum has shifted to the people. You know, when George Floyd was killed in America, over 18 countries around the world stood up in solidarity with the atrocities that were taking place in America to say, we will stand up in the face of adversity and we'll stand up for justice because we cannot allow injustice anywhere is injustice across the world, right? And so we, the people, have decided enough is enough. How much longer are we going to continue seeing the prejudice, bigotry, oppression, and suppression, and innocent killing of our Black people? So we have to be the ones to make a stand. It's no longer your minister, your mayor. It is us as individuals who have to come up together and fight together, who believe in justice and want to see justice come into life.
And I agree with you completely. As a humanitarian, I believe that we absolutely must, number one, have a world where there is no racial injustice, meaning that we have racial justice and racial equality, also equality between the sexes. And we must learn to get along and work together. And we need leaders that need to work together instead of fight against one another, because we're really tearing apart the fabric of the world by fighting all the time. We need peace. We need to move forward, and we need to do just as Nelson Mandela's grandson, Ndaba Mandela, is speaking about right now, and that is to come together as a world. Ndaba, how can people donate to the Mandela Institute for Humanity? What is the website?
Our website is mifh.org. You can go on the website. It will show you exactly how to donate. Yeah, we are really, as a new organization, looking to partner with people with experience in the philanthropic world who have skills, you know, whether it be fundraising,
whether it be mentoring young people, to assist us to building a strong leadership program.
What advice can you give to future generations, to the youngest people? Because our youth are our future. And I know you have this Leadership Institute, the Mandela Institute for Humanity. I think that's vitally important, where you're training leaders and where you want to educate young people. But what advice can you give to our youngest people?
I want to encourage our young people to dream big, to dream big, so big that their dreams should scare them. If your dreams don't scare you, you are not dreaming big enough, my friend. You understand what I'm saying? Martin Luther King had a dream. JFK had a dream. Rosa Parks had a dream. Winnie Mandela had a dream, right? It all starts with the dream. But you have to work at it day by day, week by week, month to month, and celebrate when you get from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. And one of the things that supports you in getting to your dreams is having a mentor, somebody who loves you, somebody who wants to see you win, somebody who's going to encourage you and help you navigate this treacherous life thing called, the journey to success. So we need to encourage our young people to be bold, to be strong.
And I understand you're a father, because I hear a little baby in the background, and I had the opportunity to meet one of your children earlier, and that's really wonderful. So you for sure will be a great teacher to your children, and you are a great teacher to others. And your grandfather was a phenomenal teacher to you and then to the world. And we have about 1 minute left. What would you like to leave our audience with, Ndaba?
I would just like to say to the people who are watching out there, ladies and gentlemen, we want to leave this world better than we left, that we came in, right? We want to make sure that our children are not fighting the same things that we've been fighting for the past 500 years. Let our children, let the next generation find new things to fight upon, but not prejudice, not bigotry, right? Let us come together as a world and truly, be honest with each other so that we can come together, agree about the past, and then chart a way forward to bring this humanity to the next plateau.
Ndaba, thank you very much for joining us. This concludes Successful Philanthropy. Our guest today, Ndaba Mandela, grandson of Nelson Mandela. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff. I'll see you next week.